When Roland purchased the portable panels a couple months ago, we thought it'd be a great idea so that when we parked in the shade, we could keep the van cool by staying in the shade, but drag the portable panels out further into the sunshine. The problem that we were having with the portable solar panels was the last few places that we went, we didn't have any sun at all. So we were completely in the shade. And then we were gone all day, so we couldn't leave them out to charge while we were gone at our campsite when there was no one else around. We had to just put them back in the van and drive with them in there. Or we just put them on the top of the van with bungee straps and drive very slowly and carefully so that we could get some power in while we were driving from place to place. Totally redneck, I know, but it worked for the time being. So anyways, Roland went out and bought himself some permanent solar panels, and today he's installing them. So what you doing up there, Roland?
Well, I'm installing some solar panels. These are 200 watt a piece, so I've got two of them. That's total of 400 watts. Renogy solar panels. Right now I'm drilling the holes for the cables to go in. So I tested it. I've hooked the panels up with some temporary cables and everything's working fine. Now I'm drilling some holes to get some new cables put in. And that's going to be the next step, is to feed those cables through this piece right here. There's some knobs which I'll show you. I think I've got those upstairs. Feed the cables through and then I'll connect them to the panels, and then start bolting everything down.
Awesome.
Yeah. When I tested this afternoon, I have full sun. These being on top of the van, flat, of course it's not the optimal angle, but I was still getting, out of the 400 watts, I was getting just over 300 watts. So that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. So here are the pieces I was talking about. These bolt into here. The cable runs through these, what would you call them? They're kind of, they get a rubber seal in there. It's kind of a, I would consider it like a cap, right? It's to keep moisture out, keep rain out. I'm going to put some of the sealant over this anyways. It looks like it would keep the water out, but just in case, I'm going to seal them up. The other thing I want to point out is I'm putting the double-sided tape, the 3M double-sided tape, and I'll screw these in, but the tape alone would have this fastened onto the roof of the van, no problem. In fact, every one of these solar panels, I've got them bolted in, but in addition to bolting them in, I also ran the double-sided tape. So that does a couple things. One, secures it to the top in addition to the bolts, and the other thing is it keeps rain, moisture out as well. So double-sided tape on this, double-sided tape on this. Anything that is going to be hitting the surface of this van is getting this double-sided tape. Alright, so before you feed the cables actually through the holes in the van, you want to make sure that you're feeding them through the case that's going to cover it up. Because once you get them fed through, there's no other way to get these items on there. So kind of do it in reverse order. This is what's going to go in to the van. So I put this cap on, right? And then I feed it through here. And that way, once I get it fed through the holes in the van and install this, it's all ready to go. I just cap it up and bolt it down. So you want to make sure you feed these things through before you feed this end through the van. Alright, as I tighten this down, it's holding it in place, so that's good. And I'm taking most of the slack I can out of the line, and my slack will be in the van. That way it'll give me the flexibility to put this cable really wherever I want it within the van. And as you tighten these up on here, it actually, I don't know if I mentioned this, but it holds the cables in place, so they're not slipping in and out of this cover.
So Roland's up on top of the roof and he's feeding me these wires down into the van.
Alright, so we got the wires fed through the van. Now, those wires did not have ends with them, so they came with ends. So to install these things, you take them apart. This is what they come like. They're all one piece. Take them apart, and what you need to do is you need to make sure you're feeding, just like we did up there, the parts that the wire will go through. So this example, here's the cap. Feed that through right there. Right. Here's a little washer or seal, rubber seal. So I'm going to put those in like that, and then what I'm going to do is I will then put on the connector. I'll crimp that onto that wire right there, and then screw the other part in. So give me a minute and I'll do that. Let's see if we can do this. Alright, now I'm going to take this piece. Oh, the other thing I want to point out too is that when you're putting these pieces on, this is my positive. Make sure you got the right end that's going to go into your positive cable on your generator. Okay, I know some of the installations, if you're doing a generator that is not like a Blue Addy or something that is portable, these ends I believe just bolt into a controller. So may not have to put these ends on it, but if you do have to put the ends on it, make sure you got the right one that's going to go into your next cable. Alright, so hey, I've put on the ends, both on the positive and the negative, and I made a mistake. And I'm telling you this so that you can avoid it. When you're putting these clips on, there's little metal components that you crimp on. You saw me crimp on to the ends there. Well, they're different. One is a male end, one's a female end. And what I ended up doing was I crimped the wrong end onto my connector. Luckily, I noticed it like right away. So I didn't do both sides, but I had to tear it back apart. I had to pull that wire out of there. That was a little tough, and recrimp it to the correct wire. So if you're doing this and you have to put these ends on, pay attention to the little metal connections that you have to crimp onto the wires. Make sure you got the right one with the right end. Fingers crossed. We're gonna see if we get power. Right now we're at 94%. Okay, and positive goes to positive. You see I got the right end, the right connection here. There's clips in there. And negative to negative. So red wire to red wire, black wire to black wire. And give it a few seconds. Oh, it's already... I got 12, 7, what's... I must be in the shade. I'm in the shade, so I'm not drawing a whole lot of energy here. But the main part is I want to make sure that I'm getting power, which it shows that I am. I'm getting a few watts trickling in here. And that's typical. If you get shade over these solar panels, the amount of wattage reduces tremendously. They need to be in full sun. So the fact that I'm getting power indicates that the solar system is working. I can check my information. Looks like I got about 40 volts, 42 volts, 0.3 amps, 8 watts on average. All right, appears to be working. That's good news. Now, the next step will be to finish bolting the panels on the roof and putting the cap on, and then doing some zip ties on the wires to make sure that they're not just rattling around up there. So just to summarize, what I did was I bought 2 Renogy 200 watt panels, so a total of 400 watts. I actually had to have 2 of those in order for the voltage to be within the range of my Blue Eddy. I bought some Z brackets to mount the panels. That was extra. I bought those right from Renogy. And a 10 amp inline fuse, some extra cable, 10 foot positive and negative cable, with one end not having the connectors because I had to feed it through the roof. So one end had the connectors, one end didn't, so I could feed it through. I bought I'm going to call it a cap, for lack of a better term, which is the plastic piece that the wires fed into, that I mounted on the roof of the van. And bought some like sealant, like silicone marine sealant, to seal all of the areas that were connected to the van, as well as double-sided tape by 3M. Installation consisted of putting the brackets, mounting the brackets onto the panel, putting the double-sided tape onto those brackets, positioning the panels on the roof, taking off the tape, cleaning the surface of the van, sticking the taped brackets to the van, and then using the self-tapping bolts that came with the brackets to drill into the van. I also put a little bit of that sealant on each one of those screws. It comes with a rubber washer, but I put some sealant on there as well, so that when I drilled it in, it was going to be waterproof. The tape also helps with that, so the tape will also help it be waterproof. So I'm pretty confident we're not going to have any leaks. Once it was mounted, I took the wires, I connected the wires into the connections that come from the panel, drilled the holes that was going to go into the roof, and then I put a like a plastic grommet into those holes so that the metal of the roof did not cut into the wires. So you didn't get to see that in the video, but they were little round grommets that I, after drilling, put those inserts in there to prevent the wire, to slide the wire through so it didn't hit the edge of the metal. Fed the wires through that cap, that cover, through the components of the cover, down into the roof, into the ceiling, routed those wires. Once that was all set, I put the connections on the end, plugged it in, made sure everything was working. And one thing I want to note too is, before I even put the panels up there, I tested them. So I plugged them into the generator, made sure there was no issues with the panels before I even attempted to mount them or even put them on top of the van. I want to make sure those panels were working. So if you're listening to this video, make sure you're doing that first. Make sure the panels work before you get everything mounted up there. Once the wires went through, I put the connections on, tested it again, made sure there was no issue, and then after that, finished bolting everything down, bolting the cap down, also put double-sided tape on that. Excuse me. And then use some of the sealant around all of the brackets and the cap, just making sure everything is sealed tight. All right, about a day's worth of work, and I'm excited. These things will be running as we're on the road. We do a lot of traveling. We're not really sitting in one place, so my suitcase panels that I bought for the Blue Eddy, they work fantastic, but you got to be stationary in order for those to work. We did strap them on the van a couple times, but not ideal. I don't want to ruin them. Those were very expensive panels. The other good news is that these panels, these permanent panels that I installed, I can also run the suitcase panels or the folding panels in addition to this. I can run them in series, so I won't exceed the voltage limits of the Bluetti. So potentially I could, if we are stationary, between the 400 watts I got on the top of the van and the 400 watts that I have in the foldable panels, I would have a total of 800 watts coming in. I believe that my Bluetti limits my input to 700 watts, so it would basically it won't exceed 700 watts. Chances are, though, with an 800 watt set of panels, you're not going to get 800 watts anyways. And you know, if you get 600, a little over 600, you're doing pretty good. So I think I'll be well in range. So there you have it. New panels installed, ready for travel.